I wanted to talk about Patanjali today. Yesterday somebody asked me would I like to talk about Patanjali. I said no. But today I will. I want to talk about the attitudes of a true devotee. Patanjali begins with, now we come to the subject of yoga. And Master explained that word now is very important. What it means is that there are three basic systems of philosophy. One is Sankhya, the other is Yoga, the third is Vedanta. Sankhya, the purpose of Vedanta, of Sankhya, is to say why we should seek a better world than this life. Yoga tells you how to find it, and Vedanta tells you what you find when you get there. So that now is a very important thing. It refers to the fact that before you can study yoga, you have to understand why you need to go to yoga, why you need to seek a better way of life. This life is always disappointing. You know, the principle on which God created the universe was duality. Why do we have three gunas when there's dual universe? Because Rajaguna, the middle guna of the three qualities, is an active one. It's like a wave which pushes the wave up. You have the low wave, the high wave, and the energy pushing it up. But at the two extremes you have duality. And everything in this world is dual. You have heat and cold, light and darkness, male and female, everything is dual. But the fact of that duality means that you can never find fulfillment in either direction. It's like a swing. The farther you push it this way, the farther it will go the opposite way. And so for every pleasure in this world, people work so hard to get rich or to become famous or to achieve some goal. They cannot avoid the simple and eternal fact that whatever they get, they will have to experience its opposite. You will have to. It's the law. You can't get away from that law. So for every up, you will have a down. For every happiness, you will have an unhappiness. There is only one kind of happiness to which there is no opposite, and that is the bliss of God. That is beyond duality. Triguna rahitam, beyond the three gunas. But as long as you think that you're going to find what you want in riches or in worldly happiness of any kind, you're going to have to suffer its opposite. You can't help it. And if you look at your own life with impersonality, you will see that it's true. And if it doesn't equal itself out in this life, it will in some other life. So it doesn't mean that for every kindness that you have to give an unkindness. But it does mean that whatever your ego experiences, it will have to experience the opposite. Kindness gets you out of the ego. Unkindness takes you into the ego. That's why Jesus said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Blessed means blissful. It's more blissful because you find in giving that you're helping to overcome your ego. The more you can get rid of ego, and this is the entire spiritual path, to get rid of the ego and to understand that you are not the ego, but the divine self. And everybody in this world, and they go for a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean a scary long time. I mean what it says in the Rubaiyat of Omakayam. Master explained that in a spiritual way. It's a deep spiritual poem, not a love poem. And it says, the meaning of this particular passage is that when the souls that are, many of the souls that are thrown out into a new day of Brahma, a new creation, are still wandering in delusion at the end of a day of Brahma. And the Bhagavad Gita says the same things. When the new day of Brahma comes, I throw all these souls out again. And it makes you think a little bit. Have I been through more than one day of Brahma? A day of Brahma is a few billion years. Have I been through more than one of those? You know, it isn't that God's making you suffer, you're making yourself suffer. You want it, that's why you come back. The only reason you come back to this world is that you want to come back. And if you've overcome all your desires, all your likes and dislikes, everything, then you no longer have to come back into this world. Then you could become free in the astral world. And even there, the astral world is the beginning of the ego, not your physical body or astral body. So the ego is a part of the astral body. And you can go on for much longer in the astral world until finally you understand that you've gotten rid of all your desires for that gaudy universe, and then you go into the causal universe. And, well, it takes a long time, doesn't it? To find liberation in God is not a small thing. I remember one time Norman, a brother disciple of mine, had a vision of himself on Lemuria with Master. I don't know if it was a true vision. The only vision I've ever had was of a sudden appearance of a large green face. I'm not given to visions. Thank heaven I do feel bliss, but visions, no. Anyway, he had this vision, and I got frightened, and I said, Master, have I been your disciple for thousands of years? He said, it's been a long time, that's all I will say. I said, I didn't want to think I was the only laggard. I said, does it always take so long? He said, yes. Desires for this thing and that thing take them away again and again. And to reach the point where you love God, where you want God, that's no small thing. I'm presuming that all of you in this audience today want God. I remember somebody, Norman I think it was, who said to Master, I don't think I have good karma, Master. And Master said, remember this. It takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. Look on the streets of the cities. How few people want God. How few people want a higher way of life. Very, very few. And you can see from, the ego is where is centered in the medulla oblongata. Superconsciousness is centered here. And people on the spiritual path, you can see in looking at them that their ego is getting more and more released from this center and moving more and more toward the point between the eyebrows. And I can see that in people. And those of you who are on the path, you've gone a long way already, but you've got a long way to go still, most of you. It's no joke. But why does God make you do it? He doesn't make you do it. You do it because you want to. You want to have this. You want to have that. You want, if this girl didn't do it, that boy didn't do it, this other girl will do it. And, I mean, look at how many men and women there are in the world. The reason Buddha said that we should love everybody in the world is because we have been close to everyone in the world at one time or another. That is a scary thought. I remember, though, I had a dream in Florence, Italy, and it was a beautiful dream. I saw that I saw a large crowd of people, mixture of all kinds, mafioso types, hard-headed businessmen types, good people, saintly people. And I saw that the one thing they all shared was that they all want bliss. Now, they want that bliss on different octaves. A mafioso doesn't want bliss as you and I see it. He wants it in the form of revenge, of power, of money. But that's still bliss. God made this universe out of His bliss. Satchitananda. This is an incredible thing, but after all, that is the nature of God. And we are all His creation. So all of us are seeking that bliss. The only thing is we mistake where to find it. And we think we'll find it here or there in this person or that person and so on and on. And we can go for many lifetimes before we even reach the point where we begin to think that maybe this world isn't giving me what I want. Maybe I want something more. And slowly they come to God. It takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. But remember, it still is up to you. It's nobody else. God isn't forcing you to live in this hellhole. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, get away from my ocean of suffering and misery. Get away. But he created the ocean. We're the ones who stay in the ocean. Why did God create delusion? Why did he bring us into this point where we can suffer? Well, there's a story in India that God, when he first created the universe, created everybody perfect. So they all sat down in meditation and merged back into him. So he thought, well, if I'm going to have a creation, I might as well create delusion to keep them here. People have given different reasons for why God created the universe. My reason, I think, is a good one. It's the very nature of bliss to want to express itself. And when you feel bliss, you want to expand it through artistic work, through sharing with people, and so on. And so he created this universe, they say in the Indian scriptures, in order that he might enjoy himself through many. And I think, enjoy himself? But on the other hand, yes, it's true in another way. He doesn't enjoy our present state of suffering, which most of us are in one way or another. But it's like a story where a man is born on the right side of the tracks. And he's born into a wealthy home, and because of his father's influence, he goes into a very good position in a company, and he marries the boss's daughter, and when the boss dies, he wills him his business, and everything goes right. You close that book after page 15 and think, what a bore. But on the other hand, if you've got a child born on the wrong side of the tracks and nothing goes right for him and he never has a chance for an education, but at night under candlelight he studies and teaches himself, and finally he gets a job and works his way up and finally meets the boss's daughter and marries her and gets all the same things. But after all those difficulties, you say, what a great story. Isn't it so? We need these troubles to come out of them happy. We need that duality. It's an unfortunate fact of life. Well, but the fact is that you will never find that bliss until you find it in God. And as I said, in God there are no opposites. All duality ceases in that one bliss. The nature of life is to bring us to that point. And until then you can wander, but it isn't God who makes you wander. It's you, as I said, your own self. You want these things, and as long as you want them, you will keep seeking them. When you have overcome every desire, I said yesterday that I asked Master, you mean every desire, even for an ice cream cone? He said, oh yes. Oh my God. But you know, the only thing that keeps you coming back to this world is desire for this world. If you had no desire, it's not that you're being thrown into a dungeon, it's that they don't have cigarettes in the astral world. If you like to smoke, you're going to have to come back here. They don't have money in the astral world. If you like money, you're going to have to come back here. They don't have sex in the astral world. If you like sex, you're going to have to come back here. And so it is with all the things that people like of this world. When they overcome all those desires, they don't come back into this world. And so what I'm trying to do, what Master came to try to do, what all of our teachers are trying to do, what I hope you will try to do with others whom you meet, is try to help them to love God more, because that is what life is all about. So Sankhya philosophy is that teaching which teaches you, as long as you follow this world and the ways of this world, You will have pleasure, but you will also have pain. You have ups, but you will also have downs. And you will continue to suffer, but you will suffer because you enjoy the opposites to that suffering, and so it's worth it to you. And as long as it's worth it to you, you'll have to keep on bobbing up and down like a yo-yo. So when you overcome that, you overcome everything. So yoga, when you've reached that point where you say, I'm sick of it, I really want something more, then yoga comes onto the scene. Then it's possible to teach yoga. And the next sutra of Patanjali is his definition of yoga. And this is a fascinating definition. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the neutralization. Now, most books on Patanjali, really, when I wrote this book on Patanjali, I was amazed at the absolute mud that I had to sort of struggle through. Yoga Chitta Vritti. What is Chitta? Mind stuff. Mental modifications. What do those things mean? Yogananda explained Chitta very well. He said that there are 4 aspects of the mind. One is just the mind. That's like a mirror. It's like seeing a horse in a mirror. The mind sees it, but the mind is blind. That's why in the story of the Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra was blind. And he had to have Sanjaya tell him what was going on the battlefield. Sanjaya is introspection, intellect. So the intellect is here. Mind is here. Intellect is centered here. And with that intellect, it discriminates and sees that horse in the mirror and says, oh, that's a horse. Then the ego comes into the picture and says, oh, that's my horse. But you know you're not really caught even by that much ego, because there's still the thought that, well, it's my horse, but you don't have the attachment to it. It's when Chitta comes into it that you say, oh, how happy I am to see my horse. And then you get caught in delusion. So Chitta is primordial feeling. It's centered in the heart. And men go more by intellect. Women go more by feeling. Intellect can analyze, can take things apart, but it can't really feel. Women have more reality than that, but as long as they live in their emotions, they live in delusion. Women are more attached to Maya than men, because they like little things. They like to be beautiful. They look in the mirror and spend a long time primping and everything. This is all a female. I know somebody said to a woman, the trouble with women is they take things too personally. Nonsense, I don't. Well, they do. Men tend to be more impersonal, but men are caught more by sex. Men have more desire for sex, and when that's balanced, a man can become very great. But it all balances itself out. You can't say that one sex is better than another, because all are finally just two sides of the same coin. But in fact, the female tendency to take things personally, that is a great defect. And it would be good to realize that nothing is personal. We've got to get rid of this ego. We've got to stop thinking in terms of I want this and I want that. We have to. Well, yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Chitta is centered in the heart. And Vritti means vortex. I know Vivekananda translated as waves. Maya is like like waves on the ocean with the ups and downs. But a vortex is more true in this case. Vritti means vortex, literally. And what it means is that anytime I want something, I rotate it around I like pancakes, I like this, I like that, I don't like that. But it's all vortices that form themselves and create this delusion that we have to get out of. We have to get rid of our desires and our attachments. That is Chitta. I put it this way, that bliss is the consciousness of the infinite. Love is bliss in motion. Chitta is bliss watered down to a human feeling. And we have to get rid of human feeling to understand that we are really a part of the infinite. Someday you will understand this. You will merge in God, and you will know that you are only God. That's a strange thing to say, that you will be God, but it's the true thing. Master said this to me twice. He said, when you are one with God, you are God. It's an incredible thing to say, but what else could you possibly be? God didn't create you the way a carpenter creates a table. He had only his own consciousness to make us out of. We are a part of his consciousness. And when we can get rid of these things that separate us from him, when we can get rid of this thought that I am my little ego, then we understand that he is the only reality. And I told you this yesterday. It's a good thing to repeat because it's a large part of Patanjali also. I thought of calling my book Demystifying Patanjali, because all the books make such a mystery of it. But with Master's teaching, I was able to understand some of the deepest parts of it and make it very simple. He made it simple for me. When you reach there, Patanjali says there, they call it the Eightfold Path to God. Eightfold is not really right. It's really the word Ashtanga means 8-limbed. Instead of 4 limbs, you have 8 limbs. They're all a part of the same reality. In order to overcome the first one, you have to have attained the highest. So they all work together. It's not just a rung like a ladder. But what you have to do is understand, first of all, the yamas and niyamas. Yamas means the don'ts, and the niyamas means the do's. You have to get rid of all those likes and dislikes. The first of them is ahimsa, harmlessness, I translate it as. When you're able to wish no harm to anything, it doesn't mean not killing. It does mean non-violence, yes, but it's more than that. It's not harming anything. You can harm people by words and you're not being violent to them. So ahimsa really means harmlessness, or non-harmfulness, if you want to put it in a negative way like the yamas. But when you can not wish harm to anything, even wild animals can come into your presence and be tame. Master one time in Ranchi school was taken out with a group of his students by a cart pulled by cows. We don't have that in America now these days. But he took them deep into the jungle, and then darkness came on. He should have brought them back much sooner, but he didn't. And Master, they fortunately found a hut, and they stayed in this hut. And the driver, what do you call him? I don't even know anymore. But he took this thing, this ox driver or whatever. He took the cows into a stable nearby, and then as the darkness came on, they heard the roars of tigers. Royal Bengal tigers, a very scary animal. And the driver put himself conveniently between himself and the door, the other people. And he said that that tiger is going after our cows. Well, if the tiger were to kill his cows, they wouldn't have any way to get back. And Master said, didn't you look? Didn't you close the doors? He had forgotten. So Master said, who will come out with me to close the doors? But you can imagine the stampede of eagerness. He had only himself. He took a little lantern for a little security. He got outdoors and the wind blew the lantern out. And there he was, between the tiger and these cows. And the tiger, naturally, if he couldn't get his cows, looked at him. And he just looked at the cow with love, at the tiger with love. And he said, God is in that tiger. And so he looked at it with not just love in the sense of a sweet smile. I have felt that love. It's a power that I know. One time at the desert retreat, I was leaving the room and I looked back. I used to be very short-sighted until I had laser surgery on my eyes. I couldn't see his expression, but I felt so much love pouring over me that it brought tears to my eyes. And he looked at that tiger with that kind of power. And the tiger just rolled over and let him stroke it and walked away. That kind of love is a magnetic power. We have to develop that kind of love. When you have that kind of love, even wild animals will become tame in your presence. And ahimsa, and I'm not going to go into all the Eightfold Path and all of it, because it would take lectures, not just one lecture, to explain it all and to do justice to it. But Patanjali gives you the entire path of yoga. And then he talks about the higher. When you have finally you've attained complete Ashtanga yoga, includes asana. And most people think of yoga as just Hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is really it's not part of Patanjali's yoga system at all. Asana simply means to be able to sit still with a straight spine, not moving your body. When you have reached the ability to hold your body completely motionless, without moving for 3 hours, and to keep your spine straight, then you have mastered asana, not until. So Hatha yoga has nothing to do with all that. It's a good system, and I'm not knocking it, but I do want to make it clear that Patanjali is not Hatha yoga. Then you come to Pranayama. Prana literally means energy. Breath is a part of it, but energy is what it really means. Yama, control of prana, energy. When you've learned to control that energy, you can withdraw it from the body. My guru called it withdrawing the sense telephones, cutting off the contact with the world. And he had reached that point where he could do that. A master has to do that. You've just got to, that's a prior condition to becoming a master. Then you have to interiorize your mind so that your mind doesn't flitter around. When you can learn to keep your mind absolutely still, then you've attained pratyahara. Then comes dharana, which is meditation. And Master said God has several aspects, 8 basic aspects. As if I can remember them all off the top of my head. Peace, calmness, power, wisdom, love, joy. What? I can't hear you. Tell me. What did he say? Sound and light, exactly. Thank you. And these are the 8 aspects. But sound is the easiest to commune with and the most completely filling. Music is much more, it touches the heart much more than beautiful paintings, for example. So, if you can listen to Om, this is the beginning of real communion with God. When you hear Om, first of all, you'll begin to hear it in the right ear, then bring it over to the left ear, then feel your whole body vibrating with that. And then, as you go deeper into it, you will feel it leaving your body. You'll feel yourself becoming one with Om. That is known as Om Samadhi. And when you reach that oneness with Om, then you have attained oneness with the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is the Word. It's called the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That doesn't mean in the Bible they didn't have any paper to write it on. It means the vibration of God. God was without vibration. When he decided to create the universe, he vibrated a part of his consciousness, and that vibration was Om, the Holy Ghost. And when you reach that state, then you have to see that in every well, first of all, in the body, you see the Christ consciousness in the body. You see for vibration, you have to have movement in opposite directions from a point of rest in the center. When you can see that point of rest in the center of all the vibrations of your body, then you see that part in your body which is a reflection of the infinite. That is the beginning of Christ consciousness. What Jesus has attained, what Yogananda and all great avatars have attained, is oneness with that consciousness all over space. Then they see that God is not just motion, he's that calmness reflected in all space. And then you go beyond that to the Father. But this is why the Trinity is such an important teaching. In India they have the Trinity too. They call it Om Tat Sat. Tat is the Christ consciousness. Sat is consciousness beyond creation. It's an eternal truth. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. This is a true teaching, not just a dogma. And when you have attained that, then you attain oneness with God. But to become one with the Christ, I asked Master, what state does one have to have attained in order to be called a master? He said, you have to have reached Christ consciousness. When you reach that, then, as I told you yesterday, there is still the memory. You've overcome your ego. You can't fall from that state. From the first state you can fall. There is still a little bit of ego there that you come back to, and it can become the final test also. If you take it backwards instead of forwards, if you remember that their oneness with God is an indication that you can become one with Him, wonderful. But if you start thinking, I am infinite, I am everything, it can become a very great test. And people do fall from that state. If you go beyond that state, then you achieve nirvikalpa, without condition. That is the state where you completely overcome the ego. But as Patanjali points out, you're not free even then, because you've still got all the incarnations of yourself as a pirate, yourself as a priest, yourself as this and that and the other thing. You've got to overcome all of those things by realizing that God is in those forms. God dreamed those forms. When you can remember that all those lifetimes that you remember, they're all just God's dream, then you become completely free. I said to Master, why can't you, when you've reached oneness with God, just say, I'm free? He says you can, but in that state you don't care. You're already one with God. You've already reached everything you need. You may use that as an excuse to come back and help other people. You're not bound by anything except your memory. But when you reach that point of having overcome all those, you know, it's wonderful what Jesus taught. And I said this yesterday, but it's worth repeating. Jesus said, seek the kingdom of God first, and all these things shall be added unto you. Well, in the beginning, people want those things. And so they think, well, the kingdom of God can wait. I want that money. I want this alcohol. I want all the things of this world. But he says that if you give up all of those things, you don't lose anything. Everything you ever wanted in this world, you find in the infinite. Everything. But I was wondering, what about you've given up the ego? You've done that, haven't you? How are you going to get that back when the whole thing is to try to get rid of the ego? And he explained that no, you don't even lose that. Because when you find oneness with God, you still remember yourself as a particular aspect of God who became you. And even though you are one with God, and even though everything is, you are God, yet there remains still that memory in omniscience that you were this person or that person for many, many incarnations. And when people pray to you as Saint whatever it is, Saint Tom or Blow or Joe or whatever it might be, Saint Joe Gamble, when you pray to you in that form, it's you who will come back. It isn't some abstraction of God. Jesus came back also as the memory of all those lifetimes. He remembered who he had been. He was an avatar. He was a completely free soul. But a soul who comes back from that state, when he attains that liberation, he has to free at least 6 others. There was one story. Did I tell you the story of the man who was found under the ground? I think I did yesterday, didn't I? Okay, well, it was in Subsimandi. This man, they were digging there, and they found this man seated in lotus pose, still not, his body was not corrupt or anything, and he was in a state of samadhi and didn't seem to have any life, but they brought him back to life. And he started speaking to them, but nobody could understand him. And they understood that it was some sort of Sanskrit, so they got a Sanskrit scholar. And this Sanskrit scholar said, well, it's a very ancient form of Sanskrit. Means he must have been there a long time. And he says, if you dig there, you'll find the murti, the image that I used to worship. And they did, and they found that image. He then had to leave his body. Once you've come back to it after that time, you have to leave your body. But Master also explained this, that God does not want you to find freedom just for yourself. You have to free other people first. And I asked Master, how many people do you need to free? He said at least 6. But an avatar is somebody who has become free and then comes back into this world. Don't think of the word, the way they use the word avatar in this age, in this century. I mean, my avatar is a banker. That's absolute nonsense. An avatar is a free soul who has, out of compassion for humanity, come back to this world to help other people. An avatar can free any number of people. All those who came, who tuned into him. Jesus said, the Bible says about Jesus, as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. And that's true of every avatar. But it's received doesn't mean believe. I mean, you can believe the world is flat. That doesn't make it flat. To receive him means to accept into your consciousness, his consciousness. You see, you can't get out of ego by your own willpower. There was a story Master told me of a man who was being bothered by a demon. And he had read in the scriptures that if you take some powder and recite certain mantras over the powder and cast it on the demon will disappear. So he did this, and he cast it on the demon, and the demon laughed at him. He said, before you could even say your mantra, I myself got into that powder. So how could it touch me? The meaning of the story was, you want to get rid of your ego, but the ego itself is already infected by the delusion of ego. You can't get rid of the ego by yourself. You need a guru. You need one whose consciousness is free. And by attunement with his consciousness, he can give you the power to become the Son of God. He can give you the power to transcend the ego and to realize that is who you really are. So it says, Shankaracharya said that the greatest blessing in all the 3 worlds, that means physical, astral, and causal, is to have a true guru. Is the greatest blessing in this world. I know, before I met Master, before I read his autobiography, I had been trying so hard to change myself. I knew I wanted God. I didn't know that I wanted God until I went out one night. I had tried everything, and I thought, without God it's not possible for this world to exist. And I asked myself, I know there has to be a God, but if he exists, what must he be? He can't be a policeman up there or a judge. And I said, well, what makes me ask this question? The fact that I'm conscious. Therefore, he must be. Consciousness. And my job in life then, if I'm a part of his consciousness, has to be to make myself more open to his consciousness. And I remember this revelation was so overwhelming. I came back to my rooming house. I was rooming with 4 other men. And they were teasing me for being so serious and all that. But I just thought, why listen to these yapping puppies? And I just went to my room. I didn't know. This is how ignorant I was. I'd never read about saints. I didn't know such things existed. I thought a saint was a kindly old man who patted little children on the head and helped old ladies across the street. I didn't know what a saint was. I thought that I was the first person in history who had decided he had to know God. And I thought, am I going crazy? And I tried to get away from this, thinking I must be going crazy. And I tried to go out thinking maybe it was I needed to get back to nature and live more in harmony with nature. And I remember walking out in the countryside. I went up to Indian Lake, New York, a little village there, and I would see a dewdrop on a leaf, and I would think, that's beautiful. But I can't feel it. I realized I have to change myself. And even if I go crazy, I have to seek God. And I had reached that point of desperation when God came and helped me out. If I was only 22. If my parents had been there with me, I could not have. Suddenly go to an Indian guru. I didn't know anything about Indian teachings. I didn't know anything about the word guru. I didn't know anything. If I had tried to go to him, they would have stopped it. I'm sure they would have done it. But God saw to it that my father was sent to Egypt. In fact, he was sent to Egypt quite uselessly. He worked for Esso, and he was an oil geologist. He became the chief geologist for Esso in Europe. But he found where oil would be found in Egypt. But Esso took him away from there and sent him to France. Mobile came in and found oil just where my father had said that oil would be found. I take that as a sign that God sent him to Egypt for my sake, not for Esso's sake. And the day that I put my mother on the ship to go join him, I went uptown New York, and I went to Doubleday Duran, as it was called then. Now it's called Doubleday. And I went to a section on Indian philosophy. I knew that it existed. I wanted to know more. And I saw Autobiography of a Yogi. And I was so attracted to that face that I had to get that book. And I read that book, and I took the next bus across the country. I didn't know what a guru was. I wanted to be his disciple. That's all I knew. The first words I said to him were, I want to be your disciple. And thank God, he accepted me. But I remember, I couldn't figure out what this guru stuff meant. I remember him one time saying to me, if you knew my consciousness, my God. I knew he was a good man, but he was talking much more than that. And I came gradually to understand. I don't think his early disciples ever really understood who he was. I think he tried in his early years to identify with people so they would feel drawn to the path. But when in his later years he was very frank, as Jesus was frank, in saying, I and my Father are one. And when the Jews accused him of blasphemy, he said, don't the scriptures say ye are gods? We're all that. The difference is he had realized it. We have still to realize it. And to us he was more frank about that. But I found living with him, he spent many, many hours in my presence. I spent it in his, I should say. And he explained many things about the spiritual teachings, things I've explained to you today that I don't think the other disciples even understand. I know that the Bhagavad Gita, their explanation of Master, their editing of Master, they say when you find Samadhi you're free. No, you're not free. There's Savikalpa Samadhi. You have to go through stages. They don't seem to know that. They said that if you're in Tamoguna, here's what you can do to overcome it. When the signal fact of being in Tamoguna means you don't want to become better. You can't do anything to make yourself come out of Tamoguna. You have to be with people through good company. You can get raised. So anyway, he told me things I don't think any of the other disciples know. But in telling me that, he told me you have a great work to do, and you all are a part of this great work. It will help to change the world. You know, when he told us that he was William the Conqueror, my first thought was horror. I mean, I'd been raised in the English system, and I'd always thought of William the Conqueror as one of history's villains. And here I found he was my own guru. And I really had to do some research to find out about William. And I had Catherine Kairavi look into it and do research. She spent 10 years researching his life, and my life as his son Henry. And she found one thing as a prime example. 400 years after his death, they exhumed his body and found it incorrupt. Only saints have been found incorrupt. Fernando in Italy, in Spain, was also found incorrupt. He's still incorrupt. I went to see his body in Sevilla. And he was a great saint, but he had a difficult mission. Ordinary saints have to remember to be kind and humble and good and all these things. An avatar, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, when darkness and evil are in the ascendant and virtues in the decline, I myself take the form of an avatar in order to punish the evil. Not punish evildoers, but to destroy the evil and to raise the virtuous and to emphasize virtue. William the Conqueror came with a very difficult mission, but his mission was to bring England into the line, not with the Norwegians, but with Rome and the truer aspect of Christianity, which in fact is still not true, but much truer. He had a divine mission. And when I came to Master and found that to be true, I realized what a great master he was. And why did he even bother to tell us that he was William? Because his mission in this life is just the same. It's to change the whole world. He often said to us, you don't know how great this work is. You see it now with a few hundred people here and there. It will be a very great work. And why? Because people will come to understand that God cannot possibly be a separate man from ourselves. If matter is only energy and a rate of vibration, then everything must be consciousness, as I myself reasoned it out that night near Charleston. God is that consciousness, and we have to be a part of it. Now, when the churches latch onto that truth, what are they going to do with all their dogmas? What are they going to do with the thought of Jesus Christ being the only one and we're all nothing compared to him? What are they going to do with the thought that we have to become that? To them it will be blasphemy. We will be persecuted. Yes, we will. But in the end, it will be understood that Christianity as it has been understood is not Christianity, it's churchianity. True Christianity, Master came to show that Christianity and true Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, which means the eternal religion, is the same religion. It cannot be another religion in the most distant planet, in the most distant galaxy. It still has to be Sanatana Dharma, because we have all come from God, we're all made of God, we're all a part of God, we all must merge back into God. That is true Hinduism. That is true Christianity. That is Sanatana Dharma. And in time, that Christianity, that churchianity will have to fail, because people will see that it's just not possible. And then they will begin to understand this higher truth. He came and he said that someday self-realization will be the religion of the world. He didn't say Self-Realization Fellowship, Inc. I said this to Dayamata. You know, they when they were threatening us with a lawsuit, which they ended up pursuing with vigor, I think they spent $50 million trying to destroy us. But because God was on our side, we always told the truth. They told lie after lie. But we won. And they won about 5%, which I let them win because I didn't want them keeping on our backs all the time. We'd won what we needed. But that oneness with God, it was not a self-realization fellowship. Master didn't come to bring a new Catholic church. But when I said that to Dayamata, she said, "That's your opinion." Well, yes, it's my opinion. And it's quite a firm opinion. There won't be religions as we see them today. We will all understand that we have to realize ourselves. That's why I often say to people that I'm not here to convert you to anything except your own higher self. That will be the religion of the future, when you understand that your relationship with God is discovered that you are His child. You are one with Him. You're not your little ego. That is self-realization. That will be the religion of the future. And what Master came and the teachings he came, they will change the world. Not in your lifetime, certainly not in mine, but it will come. It cannot but come because it's the truth. And man is coming to that truth automatically in this new Dwapara Yuga, a yuga of energy. Well, I've been talking a lot longer than I expected to, just on the first sutra. I had a lot more things to say. I'm not going to say them. I think it's time for you to go and have your lunch. Anyway, I'd like to have the choir come and sing one more song. Will you do that?